Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of the Monsters Den. Today we're going to take a look and discuss a film by Herc Harvey, independent film at the time, 1962, called Carnival of Souls. This here is the Criterion Collection Blu-ray release of this very creepy old independent horror classic. Alright, so filmed in black and white. No doubt an influence on directors such as George Romero, David Lynch especially, alright, among others. One of those movies that, not a very long film, not a film filled with action, but a really kind of film filled with mystery and dread and the confusion of whether what you're seeing is actually happening or not, right? So it starts off, you've got a bunch of girls, right? A bunch of, young ladies, 4 friends, driving around, trying to have a good time. I believe in Kansas, right? I believe is where this film starts off at. And they're driving around, nice day. You see a bunch of guys in the car next to them, right? So the guys are like, hey, let's all go hang out, do something, right? So they wind up following each other, driving down all these roads, they're going out in the boonies a little bit. Then they're driving next to each other, go over a bridge, but the bridge is not a very wide bridge, right? And they're a little too close, and what happens? Well, the lady's car winds up hitting the guardrail, going over the bridge into the water underneath, right? It's got a river going underneath. And what winds up happening? Of course, the car sinks, and they can't find it. It's a pretty deep river, pretty, very muddy river. So, of course, the police come, and people who live in the town, the guys, from the other car, like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. But lo and behold, down river a little ways, on this like muddy embankment, one of the ladies in the car, blonde girl, she surfaces, and she just walks out of the water on the muddy embankment, surprisingly not looking that wet. It's kind of strange, but and doesn't really have a lot of recollection of what happened. And the people who see her, they all run down to help her, and they're amazed that she survived. And they're asking, what happened to your friends? What happened to your friends? What happened to your car? And she doesn't really know, right? And they're not able to find the car. So next thing you know, she's kind of recovering. And she decides, after everything that's happened, everything she's been told, she needs a kind of a new start. So she gets in her car, packs up her stuff, and heads to Salt Lake City to kind of start fresh, right? She's also a organ player, right? She's like a church organ player. So she winds up getting a job as the organist in this local church in Salt Lake City. So she's excited about starting that new job, and she goes and she rents a room in a boarding house, okay? And this boarding house is a little old lady who's the landlord and owner. And apparently in this house, the only rooms that are currently being occupied is hers, and there's a gentleman across the hall. So when she moves her stuff in, she eventually meets that gentleman across the hall. And he's a guy who's probably about her age, maybe a little bit older. And he's like total creepzilla. I mean, this guy, and she is played by Candice Hilligoss, okay? Creepy guy is played by Sidney Berger. He is probably like the creepiest, nerdiest guy you'll ever see in a film. I mean, he's got the weird, shifty eyes. He's got the receding hairline. He is the epitome of a scumbag. All right, and obviously he's got his eyes set on her from the get-go. He tries to, let's hang out. Oh, you want to come out to dinner with me? I know I only just met you 2 minutes ago. That sort of thing. Oh, why don't I come into your apartment? We'll hang out. And she's like, no. And throughout this whole film, you get the impression that she is not someone who is good at getting close to people. And she talks about that as the film goes on, but she's just, based on what's happened to her, and based on obviously things that have happened in her life, which they really don't get into a lot, she's just not a touchy-feely, get-to-know-me type of person for the most part. So, over the next half hour or so, there's quite a lot of him really trying to get her to go out with him so they can go do things together. But before you know it, she starts seeing... I'm trying to see if I can get a picture of it for you. She starts seeing this kind of ghoulish guy, like everywhere she goes. And that is this character right here. Alright? Kind of looks like Grandpa Munster a little, right? So she starts seeing him all over the place. She sees him like when she's driving the car. He's in the window. She sees him on the staircase of the place where she's living, and actually played by Herc Harvey, the director. And she sees him, in the church. Everywhere she goes, she sees him. And then she starts seeing more people that kind of look like him. And they've got like the pasty face, almost like zombie-ish, right? They don't really say anything. They all have white hair. They all have the pasty white face, and they all just kind of like move really slowly. And they're all staring at her, right? There's also a scene where she sees a whole bunch of them like in the church. Everywhere she goes, she sees them. And so she's getting a little unnerved by that, right? It's like, she goes to the landlady. She's like, who is that strange older gentleman who's been hanging around in the building? And she's like, there is no older gentleman. It's just like, the only people besides me here is you and her next door neighbor, the younger guy. There is nobody else here. And she's like, that's kind of really weird. So the film kind of goes along, and I'm not going to give away the ending, but it's just her trying to deal with, she knows or thinks she doesn't really know, she knows what she's been told, what she went through back where she lived before, all right? And then this kind of weird, older, funny-looking guy who just seems to pop up everywhere, and then this creep who lives next door who's totally coming on to her. She eventually agrees to go out with him. That doesn't turn out well at all. And then there's a fantastic scene where they go out to a place where there's dancing and you can drink. It's kind of looks like a bar, but it looks more like a diner. People are dancing and having beers and smoking cigarettes and listening to music. And he just wants to have a good time. He wants to have her, have her to have a good time. Maybe have a couple of drinks so they can go back and have a little fun. But she's just not really into it. And there's a scene where they come back and she lets him into her apartment. Of course, she's being very resistful, and then at one point in time, he's like trying to kiss her, and she's avoiding it. But then she looks up, and the old zombie-looking dude, the dead guy, or the ghost, whatever, is like right there. So she wigs out, starts screaming. He's the young guy, the creep from next door, is like, this is getting way too weird for me, and I'm out of here. So he kind of leaves. And there's all these other things that kind of happen. Most importantly, I think one of the reason why it's called Carnival of Souls. So in Salt Lake City, all right, there is this gigantic abandoned carnival, or it looks like almost like if you were like if anybody knows like Atlantic City, kind of like a boardwalk. Got a body of water, got the boardwalk, you got a little arena and all these different shops and things where they have rides and all this kind of stuff. So there's this whole like carnival kind of atmosphere, and it's been deserted. Okay, it's this old, entertainment plaza that nobody goes to anymore that's been shut down. And she is like really attracted to go there. At one point, the priest who hires her at the church, they're driving around together, and she wants him to go take her in there, but it's all boarded up and everything. And he's like, no, it's closed down by the city. You can't go in there. And she really wants to go in there. And there's scenes throughout the film where she is inside that place, and all of a sudden these scary dead ghost zombie people, whoever they are kind of like chasing her around and following her around. It's really, really like bizarre and unsettling, but like, think of like the vibe I get from this film, which again, from what I've been told, it greatly influenced George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. But take away like all of the graphic violence and what have you, but that same kind of stark, raw realism, right? You kind of get that a little bit in this film, but on a much more sedate level. And I think, she does a fantastic job in the title role. You can just sense her kind of pain and her frustration with not really knowing like what's going on and why. And then, at the end of the film, you get this kind of neat little twist which makes you realize, well, what have I actually been watching for the last hour plus, right? Because there's certain scenes throughout the film where she is in certain places and she's talking to people and it's like she's invisible, right? She's like, what's going on? Why are you not answering me? Why are you not hearing me? That sort of thing. So I'm not going to say any more, because I think the end, when you watch the end, you'll kind of realize, okay, well, I think maybe now I kind of understand what happened here or what didn't happen here, right? Very cool, very well shot. Like I said, it's just it's not a really fast-paced film, but it's just intriguing. It has you on the edge of your seat saying, okay, like what's actually transpiring here and where's this going? And you kind of feel for this poor woman who's just like, she doesn't have a clue as to kind of where her life is going and what has happened and where is it going. And these these small little cast of characters who kind of come into her life. So very, very cool. As always, the Criterion Collection do a fantastic job. I mean, the film, considering how old it is, right, going on 60 years old, looks spectacular. One of the crisper, clearer black and white films I've seen on Blu-ray in a while. And then you have a whole slew of bonus materials, documentaries, and things like that about the film, and all sorts of goodies. Really, really good stuff. So I highly recommend Carnival of Souls if you haven't checked it out. It's definitely one of those not often talked about classics that I think everybody needs to see who likes films from like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and can appreciate a chilling tale without blood, gore, and sex, because you don't get any of that in here, but you don't really even need it. You don't even miss it. So check it out. Carnival of Souls by Herc Harvey from 1962. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Coming up tomorrow morning for all you doom metal fans, Rich Catino and I are going to be ranking the studio albums of Candlemass. That's coming up tomorrow. You do not want to miss it. And then all sorts of stuff happening during the week. So stay tuned for that and a lot more. I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you real soon.